Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. And I can't believe this is the last Friday of September already. Wow, this year is flying by. We're about to enter the last quarter of 2020. I know a lot of people are dying for this year to end. But anyway, I want to talk to you guys about something that's very important in terms of business, and it's called relationship building or relationship marketing. And today I'm going to interview a guest that I'm going to present you a guest anyway that is an expert at building profitable relationships. So I really think you got to pay attention to this gentleman because he is an absolute expert in it. I've met him on the interwebs myself. We've built relationship together, and I want to expose him to you guys. So without further ado, this next episode starts right now.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are not getting the results you are looking for from your digital marketing efforts, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And before I introduce our guests for today and get into today's content, first of all, I want to find out how's everyone doing? Everyone doing okay? I hope you guys are doing fine. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. It's been a remarkable time giving you this content, so I'm really enjoying it. So I'm hoping you guys are enjoying it. I want you guys to leave some comments. Subscribe to any channel that you listen to, whatever app you listen to, whether it's on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or whatever. Subscribe to it. Leave some comments. Leave a review. I would love a review. Share it with your friends if you think has a local business that can benefit from some of the stuff that I do, because I do have some interesting guests, like today's guest, obviously, that can help them get exposure to their businesses. So please share the show with as many people as you want. If you help me, if you do that, that will help me tremendously, and I'll be grateful. So one housekeeping tidbit that I would like to cover before we introduce my guest is this. If you want to be a guest on my show, you can reach out to us at 888-416-7752 or send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com, and we'll put you on the schedule. The next thing I wanted to cover before introducing my guest is if there's a topic that you are struggling with, if there's some sort of digital marketing tactic, strategy, technique, whatever you want to call it, that you're struggling with, and you would like us to dedicate an episode on that particular strategy or topic, just follow the same process. Call us at 888-416-7752, or you can send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com. And we will make sure that we have that as a topic of conversation in one of our episodes. Last tidbit before we introduce our fabulous guests. If you have been inspiring to start your own podcast, I want you to give Buzzsprout a chance. Look into this tool. It's an awesome tool, guys. We're using it right now. We've been totally satisfied by using it. It's a really cool tool. Here are the reasons why I like to use it. A, it has a wonderful looking, professionally looking website for you. It's got a ton of customizable embed players that you can use for your own, website colors and whatnot. It matches everything and it makes it real simple to do. But the most powerful feature that Buzzsprout has, they also have these little sound bites too. I forgot to mention, you could have these little sound bites where you can give some teasers as to what the content is all about, so that you can draw in more listeners. But I think my favorite part is the ease of use of how it distributes it to all of the major directories: Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, etc., etc., etc. And it's a powerful, powerful way of doing it. It cuts out all of the all the lengthy processes that the other podcast hosts have. So you're not going to have that problem with Buzzsprout. And another good thing is that they actually have helped over 100,000 people like you and I successfully launch and promote their podcast. So, that's another reason. And if you were to get a link off of one of these show notes and actually try them out, you get a $25 gift card from Amazon. It's just a thank you from them to say that you're giving them a shot, and it lets them know that we sent you. So Buzzsprout, the simplest way to start and promote your podcast. Alrighty then. So now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, wanted to introduce you to our guest on this wonderful afternoon. He was going to enlighten us about business relationships because he's the master at that. He's a guy who has the under the radar strategy, and I'm sure we're going to hear all about that today. His name is Dov Gordon. Welcome to the show, Dov.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Well, I've really been anticipating this interview because I want to know a lot more about building relationships. I built my business totally not on relationships, which is interesting. I built my business 100% online. This was back in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't speak to one person, just put out products online and sold, and here we are today. But I do happen to know the power of it because that's what built my business. But to be honest with you, what sustained my business was relationships. But I have a couple of questions for you today. But before we get that, can you introduce yourself in your own words? I've already done a pre-intro about you, but if in your own words, who is Dov Gordon?
Dov Gordon is just a guy who about 20 years ago realized he has some skills that could be valuable to other people, and then struggled for many years to figure out how to turn that into a business, how to make a living, helping people. I discovered that you can be really good at things. You can genuinely care about helping people with whatever it is, and people would still not buy from you because it's not enough. It's not enough to be good. It's not enough to care. It's not enough to want to do, to charge for what you're doing. And even if you're not charging that much, even if you're undercharging, which most people do, you still have to figure out how to market and sell what you do. And that for me was an uphill battle. I'm not a natural marketer, not a natural salesperson. I do seem to have a knack for suffering through certain things, and then learning the lessons and being able to share that and articulate it in useful ways to other people. And that's worked out. So, after the first 7, maybe 8 years, I started to, things started to click into place. And I, after a while longer than that, I shifted to help other people who are good at what they do, but not necessarily natural marketers or salespeople to with some of the things I had learned, so they can also really turn their expertise into a consistent flow of great clients and attract great clients, do great work, and make great income. It's my view that most people who are looking to do their own thing, most of them are not looking to build a multi-7-figure business and scale and all that. Most people are looking to take home a nice mid 6 figures, maybe upper 6 figures, and have a life, time to enjoy it, time to travel. Well,
exactly.
Hopefully we'll have the ability to travel again soon. Recording this during the COVID thing.
I know.
And time to travel, time to spend with their families, their kids, their parents who are getting older, and And for that, you don't need to be an expert at everything. You don't need to be the online marketing guru, the celebrity, the Facebook ads ninja, the content marketing machine. Most people are not interested in being those things. And the good news is you don't need to be. But that's
Right.
not something many people realize. And what I've come to learn over the years is that you really just need one way to get there. Like you need one way that works for you to get in front of your ideal clients in a consistent, repeatable way. And also, quite by accident, I discovered that you can become the under the radar leader in your industry, which is saying that if you have good relationships with 15, 30, 50, even 100, 150 people who are, well placed in your industry, you're positioned where you'll have all the business that you can need, because most consultants or experts who've been in the game for any length of time, they come to realize that, although I'm actually curious based on your opening there, whether you agree or not, but a lot of your best clients come from referrals and relationships, except that referrals are unpredictable. Relationships take a lot of time. And we found a way through what I call an Alchemy Network to leverage that. So we can talk about that if you want. But what were you saying, that you built your consulting or agency based on ads? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, 100%. I used to work 80 to 90 hours a week back then. So there was no way I could build my business building relationships. There was no way it was going to happen. So I had to come up with a different methodology, if you will. And back then it was so easy to rank on Google with SEO. Back then it was so easy to put up an ad. They used to have this thing called direct linking with Google AdWords. You can do some direct linking into a affiliate product or whatever you were selling, and it would sell. As long as you had the right keywords, etc. But yeah, I did that totally without knowing. I mean, I just picked up a book, read it, and that was it. I remember the book I read was what was it? It was the ins and outs of Google AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up, read it, devoured that book, and started selling. That's how I started my business.
That's great. And you say back then it was easy. Has that changed?
Oh my God, it's so difficult. You get disapproved ads. You get, oh my God, it's that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Things have changed. Okay.
Things have changed dramatically, and now it's hard to rank. Like, for instance, back then you can rank a one-page website. Mm-hmm. You can't rank a one-page website anymore. It's hard to. I mean, you'll be up there for a day and it will disappear because you don't have enough content. So it's a different game. But you said a couple of things in your intro there that sparked an interest to me. Now, I happen to believe that it is all about relationships. So yeah, you can probably build something without relationships, but you can't sustain it. Mm-hmm. And that's, to your point, that's why I like that whole under the radar thing. And I kind of like under the radar because it reminds me of something that another book I read about being the hero, not being the hero to your customers, but being the guide. And, as long as you're the guide to your clients are the hero. So that, when you say under the radar leader, is kind of interesting to me, because that right away transforms me into when I was reading that book. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about your business. How did you get started? What year did you start your business? And what clients do you serve?
Started back in about 2002. Consulting, coaching. I was in my early 20s, did not know what I was doing. I'd never held a real job. So
really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
congratulations.
It sounds good. But again, the first 7-8 years, probably, if I had spent that time working for somebody else, I might have learned a thing or two that would have been helpful for me. Having said that, I don't regret it. I don't regret it because it is the path I took, and I learned a lot from it. Lots of ups and downs. It often felt like pushing boulders uphill and then watching them roll right down. But but each time if you don't quit, and I and there are times I felt like it, but I also felt like there was always these kind of these omens on the. You ever read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
No, I've seen the book, but I hadn't read it though.
Yeah, it's worth reading. I read it many years ago, and that's also where for a while I was calling my business The Alchemist Entrepreneur. We're now transitioning to the Profitable Relationships Company at profitablelationships.com, just because I'm really narrowing my focus to what we're talking about now. But just because he talks about, you got the story where it's a good story, but talks about the omens, so I often felt like I was really just hitting a wall and hitting another wall and hitting another wall, not getting anywhere. But there was always a little bit of a sign, like something like somebody or something was telling me, God's telling me, just keep going. It'll come together at some point. Don't worry. Just keep going. You put one foot in front of the other and leave it up to me. And that's not an easy thing to do for most of us, I think, but it's an important lesson I think we need to learn. So that's kind of what I learned. So, well, that's kind of what I learned. It's also what I keep learning. There's always another level. So
I agree.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of got started with that. And then, so I started with no experience, but I did take a course in coaching. I had always been reading business books since I was 13, and when I discovered the business and self-help sections in the library near my house. Yeah. And, I just felt like I had a lot to offer. But as an early mentor said to me, he said, Dov, you got a lot of talent, but you need skills and processes. And I didn't even know what a skill was. That, a skill, like, okay, playing piano is a skill. Archery, I guess, is a skill. Like, to me, a skill was a physical thing that you learned how to do.
Right.
I didn't realize that asking questions is a skill. Mm-hmm. I'd ask questions, I'd learn about it, but I never framed it for myself in that way. Mm. So I was really kind of rough, but something kept me going until eventually I just started, after a while of doing and trying and tweaking, and things started to come together. And that's when I really realized that there are a lot of people like me out there who are stuck on what I call the path of the charismatic guru. I came to see that there are two paths to thrive as a small business consultant, expert, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself. There's the path of the charismatic guru and the path of mastery.
Right.
And they're both legitimate. They're both completely legitimate. And, but they're not, they're not all, they're not equal. They're not equally right for everybody. I think that maybe only up to 10% of people are good for the path of the charismatic guru. And that's where they have this big outgoing personality and they can rely on that to grow their business. Again, that's legitimate. But when we wake up in the morning and we think, well, I've got so much to offer. How do I get clients? This is a lot harder than I thought it would be. But we've got an endless line around the block of all these experts who are coming and saying, Dov, you got to be doing Facebook ads to an automated evergreen webinar. That's what's going to do it. And then someone else is saying, Dov, you got to be doing a podcast. And someone else is saying, you got to be doing LinkedIn outreach. Someone else is saying, you got to be doing cold emails. You got to be doing public speaking. You got to be doing videos on YouTube. You got to be doing Instagram. It's endless. And it's overwhelming. Yeah. And what I came to understand is, like Stephen Covey from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he said years ago, I remember hearing him say, he said, until you have a deeper, strong yes burning inside you, it's hard to say no to all the distractions on the outside. You got to have a yes on the inside to say no on the outside. And I realized that it's true with so many things. Somebody who has a simple, repeatable process for getting clients can easily say no to all the great ideas out there because you have a yes. You've got something that works. Yeah. But until you do, we're susceptible to all that shiny object syndrome. We're susceptible to all the doubts and the questions and to being trying to do too much. Yeah. And that's the challenge, is how do we get to that point where we have a simple, repeatable plan so that we can build on it and leverage it rather than run in many different directions trying to figure something out. And then often what happens is that we're worried that if I'm doing A won't work. So I'm doing A, but I'm also doing B and C and D and E, and there's no mastery there. You're not going to master anything.
Yeah. What the key to my success is that I only focused on one thing at a time. And that was, I wanted to master Google AdWords. I wanted to really hone in on it. And I became a certified partner with them back when they weren't giving it out now they're giving it out like stickers. But now, back then it wasn't. You had to actually take a test and pass the test. Now they just, you as long as you're spending X amount of dollars with them, you're quote unquote a Google certified partner or whatever. It's lost its luster. But I really mastered it. I really understood. And that was the only path I took. And then, even when Facebook first came on the scene and they was talking about how Facebook was siphoning the traffic, I didn't pay attention to it. Now I hired people to pay attention to that. And to this day, I know nothing about Facebook traffic, but I have a team that does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm sure I'll find out in the future. Because I'm still the Google guy, Google and SEO. That's what I understand. Mm-hmm. And that's what I focus on. But I know. But to your point, though, yeah, shiny object syndrome could be a problem. And I'm assuming throughout your relationships, you help people try to, block out that shiny object. Is that part of the stuff that you provide?
It's not so much blocking it out. I think is that it's building that core. I probably would have been better off if I'd known you many years ago and you could have told me, Dov, just pick one thing and focus. And I probably would have said, yeah, I know, but I wasn't doing it because I was afraid, because I didn't have the confidence. So, you had that confidence. I don't know where it came from, and whatever it is, you deserve credit for that.
No, the only I could tell you is I cheated. I was still working. See, it took me 4 years to break out of corporate America.
Okay.
From 2007 to 2011, I was figuring this whole thing out. But I was doing this on nights and weekends, figuring it out. And that's all I was focused on. Now, I had time because I had income coming. Mm-hmm. Had I not, I would have been easily kind of driven into that whole shiny object syndrome. Trust me, I know I would have.
Well, you're bringing a really good point is to give yourself time to make that transition. Well, I probably would have. That's probably another reason why it would have been good to have a job to begin with.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yep. That's what it was. But how do you who do you serve right now? Who are the clients that you so after you figured out, okay, so let's get back to the story. After you figured it out, the shiny object syndrome was done. You listened to Stephen Covey, and now how did you transition into the rock star you are today?
Oh, rock star. Absolutely. Rock star.
You're the Bon Jovi of business relationships, man.
All right, there you go. Well, as I was moving from, doing the kind of, there are probably a few key things along the way. So where I started off, really, like I said, just knowing I had something to help. I knew that I had some skills. I knew I could help people as a coach. I took a course in coaching a couple of years, didn't bother getting the certificate at the end because I realized it wasn't what would make a difference. And I learned certain ideas and certain tools, and that was helpful. Moved on, got my first few clients by attending a Dale Carnegie class, 14 weeks of 4 hours every Thursday night it was, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it was 42 people in the class. And I remember that that's when I got my first clients. 14% of the class, whatever that is, I don't remember. I just remember the number. 14% were ended up being clients of mine. Awesome. Which is how I got started. That's how I got my first clients, because I didn't know where to go or what to do. I'd heard about the class and I figured, okay, I'll learn something and maybe I'll meet some business people. Where else? I didn't know what to do. So started with that. And then over the next few years, I started a CEO peer advisory group. I didn't know what I was doing again, but I had read about the idea somewhere, learned about, Vistage, or what at the time they were called something else. I think Tab. I think that's what it was. So, and, I realized, well, I could do that. And, except that I remember asking a client of mine, I said, what is a business that's doing $1 million in sales? Like, what is it like? Like, how many employees do they have? And kind of as soon as I asked the question, I realized it was a pretty dumb question, because I mean, it depends on what they sell, right? It depends on what kind of business it is. I mean, it could be, it could be 1 or 2 employees in some cases, and it could be 30, right? So, it could have, 80% profit margins or 3%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and my client had more experience. He was older and much more experienced in that sense, but he was very, I think he recognized that I was helping him with some things, and he was happy to help me with some things. So, I appreciated that. So that's kind of how I learned along the way. But I ended up starting with a CEO group of small business owners, and then I ended up coming across a list of larger companies, and I started cold calling them. And I cold call CEOs of companies that are doing between 10 and 150, $200 million in sales. And that led me over several years to leading a CEO peer advisory group of those people and doing some projects with them, some, strategy, marketing, organizational development. But it wasn't enough. It was too there. I'd managed to crack part of the code, so to speak, but there was a lot that I did not yet figure out. And towards the end of that, I started to figure it out. I started to realize all the things that I'd been missing along the way. Why I was able to get these meetings, but then not turn it into a client. Sometimes yes, but often not. Why was I able to get a meeting with these people, but then not get them to join my CEO peer advisory group? And again, there were a lot of things I was doing right through trial and error, but a lot of things I was doing wrong. I had also I was started investing in mentors and coaches, and so I was learning. But eventually I got to the point where I feel like, oh, okay, now I've got it. As I said before, I discovered I have this ability to suffer through something and then distill it down to its essence so that I can share it with others in a way that's helpful. And I realized, what I really want to do is take this and help other consultants who are struggling to create that consistent flow of clients because they're not natural marketers or salespeople, because they're just good at what they do, and they really just want to have a good, nice mid to upper 6-figure business built on the back of their expertise. They're not driven just by the money. Usually, they're usually driven by the fact that they know they can make a difference, and they want to make a good income, because why not? We all do have to spend and want to spend, so we need to bring it in. So, and then that became its own journey. That required learning all sorts of other new things. But what I realized at the beginning was that I wanted to do it in a way that was really, I wanted to grow my email list, my audience, through joint venture teleseminars at the time. Later it became webinars. So I asked myself, well, how am I going to find other people who have audiences who are using the internet to market to small business, entrepreneur, consultant, coach, expert, professional service firm, agency, understand direct marketing, which is that's an approach to marketing where you're getting a direct response from people. People opt in and register, and see your emails, join your webinar, and then maybe buy something from you. But also they take a long-term perspective with their joint venture partners as well as with their email subscribers. Because I don't know if you remember, but at the time it was kind of trendy to talk about, at least in that world, people were talking about seeing like your list is your personal ATM machine. You want to buy a new car, you send out an email and you get them to buy. And I really never resonated with that. You remember that, right?
Yeah, you're bringing back some memories.
It was just not. I just, and I'd see the kind of marketing that these people would put out, and I think that the people really respond to that. Like, it's so disrespectful to the audience. It's like, do you see them as
yes?
Yeah, I know. I know they respond, but it's also disrespectful to them. It's not.
Yes.
It's not seeing them for who they are. It's seeing them for their weaknesses. It's realizing I could push somebody's buttons and get them to buy, but it's not necessarily the best interest for them to buy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but for some reason I never was willing to be a part of that. But it did take me a few years kind of like hanging back and watching to get to the point where I had enough confidence to believe in myself that, I don't have to do it that way, because that's what everybody was doing. And in many ways, a lot of people are still doing that type of thing. And there'll always be some version of that. And there always has been, even pre-internet, there's always been that type of, and, like, for example, I sometimes in these launches, people would have, like 3 videos, and underneath they'd have a comment section, and they'd be asking people and share this or that. And people would be sharing things that they had no business sharing openly. Like if someone is looking for help on how to build their business and you're asking them to share, and people are sharing all these things that make them look like idiots.
Yeah.
I would never do that. I can't do that. Like even if it was fair for the person to share now, maybe because that's a way for them to get some help.
Yeah.
If it completely vanishes off the internet, within 24, 48 hours, then that's something else. But if somebody, a potential client of theirs, is searching their name, 2 months down the line, they might find these comments. And it just seemed like a lot of people weren't really thinking that far ahead. They're just so focused on the stress or the pressure that they were under. And I just did, anyway. So I was looking for people who respected their audiences, respected their colleagues, and took a long-term perspective. I joined several different online forums. I didn't quite find what I was looking for. So I started my own group. I figured, well, I'll just start my own group. What was amazing was that each online forum, that's what they were, was different. And each one was really heavily influenced by whoever the leader was. And I found like I didn't quite fit into any of them. So I started my own. I reached out to a handful of people that I'd met online in a different course I'd taken or a program I'd been in. I said, hey, this is what I want to do. You want to join me? And they joined. And over the next years, we grew to about 195, 200 members, including people who at the beginning and in the early years, people who I would have looked at as put them on a pedestal as like, wow, these people are so far ahead of me. I can't possibly offer them anything. I don't have any way of, why would they ever want to talk to me? But now they were in my group, my network. I call it an Alchemy Network. And I was just really in this amazing place. And that's how almost all of my business would come, because they joined my network and then we would promote each other. Mm-hmm. So except that most, the different styles people still have. But for the most part, they fit the criteria of what I was looking for. But after about 8-9 years of growing that group, we got to about 200 members, and I realized that only about half were active. Yeah. And of the half that were active, it was probably about a third, very active, moderate, light. And I realized that there were people who joined the group because there was no fee to be in, it didn't cost them anything. And they're just hanging on to this membership card that maybe one day I'll use. And I realized that it's starting to get kind of top heavy, which wasn't, something needed to change. And I decided, after consulting with some people in the group who I trusted, and, I trust them all, but certain people I had a closer relationship with and who I felt had experience that would be, that I could trust or rely on or learn from, really. And they all said, we can't believe you're not charging anything. This is the best group I'm in, and I'm paying $25,000 to be in this other group. And this, your group though, is more valuable. And I'm thinking, really? Huh.
That was a huge aha moment, huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was actually a series of small ahas where things started to dawn on me with each conversation, because I was really afraid of switching to paid. I was really afraid. Sometimes you reach these crossroads in life and business, and where, your gut is saying, you got to do this. It's time to take that leap. And your brain is thinking, but what if this goes wrong? And what if that doesn't work out? And what if this? And what if that? And it's just scary, but you have to do it. You've got to take the leap, because if you don't, you're just going to be swimming in the same little pool. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going up the ladder. Yeah. So I eventually made the decision, and I sent an email to the whole group. I was afraid of losing these great relationships. Like, there were people in the group who were like well-known people. We had some people who were, very successful, well-known. I was just afraid of losing it all. I was afraid we'd go from 200 down to between 10 and 20. Anyway, so when I got to the point that I felt it was the right move, I had to start charging. And it's not a huge amount, but like, I started switch to $1,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That would help me know that people want to be there. And I also figured I can make a little money from it, because why not? I mean, I've created something really valuable for these people. And
you're providing value. Yeah, exactly.
And it takes my time, and I benefit in other ways. But so I sent out, what I was getting at is that I had to get to the point where I was ready to lose it all. And I think this is a really important lesson.
Yeah.
It doesn't work if you think, well, I'm going to do this, and if it doesn't work, I'll blame all these people who told me to do it. Oh, I got bad advice. No, you can't do that, because then you're definitely going to blow it.
Correct.
You had to get to the place I got to the place where I was genuinely comfortable losing everything, but I felt it was the right thing. And I think that if I hadn't approached it that way, if I hadn't mentally and emotionally gotten to that place, then I probably wouldn't have worked out. It's a paradox. It's really a paradox in a sense. So I got to that place, and fortunately we ended up with 45 people who stayed right away. And,
That's a good number.
We've we're now just past the year, and we're coming close to doubling since then.
That's outstanding.
Right? So yeah, it is really good, I have to say. And the interesting thing is that while we were free for quite a long time, I'd get people saying, "Hey, so-and-so is, so-and-so should be in this group," and making the introductions for me. And that's a big part of how we grew. After the first few years, when I was really, kind of finding people myself and inviting them. After I switched to paid, probably the first 5-6 months, I maybe got 1 or 2 introductions, but then it just started again. And now it's all the time. I mean,
but because people who see the value of something like that, I mean, I don't know how much is it still 1,000, or did you raise it?
No, it's still 1,000, because but these, I have another network that's 2,000, right? And that's something I started afterwards. But go on. So what were we going to say?
What I've noticed is business people who see value in relationships, because that's what you're building in that group. You're building more relationships. 1,000 is like, hey, I'll do it. Why not?
Yeah.
I'm getting value out of it. So what's the point? Yeah,
I agree. And it's not for everybody, and I don't accept everybody. Not everybody joins. Like I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they wanted to know, well, is there a way of trying it to see if we like it? And I said, no, not because I'm being a jerk about it, but because in my experience that when people hear the description and they're talking to me, either they feel like, yeah, I really want to do this, like I get it, or they don't. And I don't want, this is not a course that anybody can go and sign up and pay. And that's an important thing about building an Alchemy Network that I help my clients understand, because that's my whole business now, really is really helping people build their own alchemy networks as a way of becoming an under the radar leader in your industry. Like I've got all these people who, a lot of them have much bigger businesses than I do, which is totally fine, because their goal and mine are not the same. That's something else I had to learn along the way. Is that a lot of these people who are most visible saying, hey, if you could just do this, then you can have all this like I do. I don't want all this that you have.
Right.
And I don't want to be doing all the things you're doing either. So you have to be, you've got to become comfortable, doing it my way, and finding your own voice. And that's really when you start to flourish.
Because you got rid of the noise of all the people telling you, Dov, you have to do it this, Dov, you have to do it. And you sat down and said, this is what Dov wants to do, because this is who I am. Now that story you just shared about the group and your decision making of, man, should I make it paid? Am I going to lose everybody? All that stuff reminds me. I recently started. I'm a huge advocate of coaching, by the way. I believe without coaching, I would not be where I am today.
Likewise.
So the last coach I just took on is coached with was Tony Robbins. And one of his coaches told me something that it screwed me up. I have it right here on the wall in my office. Screwed me up for life. It says, Frank, in your moments of decision, your destiny is shaped.
Mm-hmm.
He said that's a Tony Robbins phrase. Yeah, I said, and I looked it up and I started seeing it I've never heard it before. All of a sudden, I'm seeing it everywhere, and it just came from. So that's what happened with you in your moments of making that decision of that. I got to make it pay. It doesn't make any sense to keep it free.
Mm-hmm.
Now your destiny is shaped, and you even have another group now, and you're probably going to have more groups.
Exactly. Because
that's phenomenal. Thanks for sharing that story, by the way.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. By making that decision, that helped me, because for a couple of years, I'd started to think, well, a lot of the people who are doing similar things to what I'm doing, they're very focused on a tactic. The people who are selling how to make money with the Facebook ads, how to do this with with whatever. They're very focused on a tactic, and it just always seemed like it was much easier for them to sell what they sell. And it makes sense because they're basically saying, hey, I have a process. You plug this in, it works for you. And it's never that simple. It's never that easy, really. Like there's always going to be a learning curve because everybody's going to have to find their way. But the fact is, it is easier to sell. And I was always of the belief that I don't want to just give people paint by numbers, because I really think that people need to learn the skills. They need to learn how to think. They need to learn not just what to do, but why and how to do it in a way that, like, how to know when to do what and what. Anyway, I always felt that way. I feel like, like that's what I think of as the path of mastery. It's distilling it down to what's the critical 10% that gives you 90% of the results that you want, and focus on learning and mastering those critical 10% of skills. And it's not just what to do; it's the thinking, it's the why, and all that.
That's right.
And most people I look around that might have spent thousands, tens of thousands. Even I've had clients spend like 6 figures with coaches and so on, and even some well-known ones, and come to me and say, "Hey, it wasn't until I started working with you that I came to really understand all the things that they were saying, because just you explained it more precisely. You helped me see it in a way that no one else helped me see it before." And I think it's because they're not explaining it as clearly, honestly. So
probably by design.
well, not necessarily. I was once one of the people who were in the group, my network, before we started charging, and did not continue. But like a good guy, like someone who was quite successful with doing launches and so on. We were once talking on a one-to-one call, and I explained some of my thinking and how I approach it, and he said, "Huh, he just gotten much clearer on why what he does works." And he was teaching this stuff, but and to me, that's like, because I'm always doubting myself. I'm that kind of I doubt myself. I question, and I think that's again. I think we all have two sides to us. We've got whatever our strengths are. There's the weakness on the other side of the coin. So
correct.
When you're able to see lots of different possibilities, and you can see, well, this works because of that, and I kind of really peel off a layer or two and another layer and kind of get to the underlying structure of why things work when they work, right, as opposed to just skidding across the surface. So you really understand that lots of things could work, everything could work, and everything could fail. So
correct.
You don't have the arrogance to stand up and say, this is the way to do it. Everyone's got to do it this way. But other people who may not have that kind of depth of perspective, they, on the other hand, they can get up and say, this is the way it works, this is what we do it. And because we humans are wired to want certainty, like one of the other things Tony Robbins teaches, like we have that need for certainty as well as uncertainty or variety, or so we all do feel drawn to the person who speaks with such certainty.
Correct.
Anyway, that's kind of where it was all about. I will just say this, that we passed the first year anniversary of this since I started charging for that group, and I'm pleased to say we're roughly, I have to run the numbers precisely, but we had about 90% renewal, so that's good.
Outstanding.
And I know that maybe I should charge more, but remember, the main thing is we also do support each other. We promote each other. Because my attitude is, if I have an audience, email subscribers, let's say, that's really what I have. Most of them will never do business with me, but they're there because they're looking for something. They might be looking for you, Frank. They might be looking for Bob. They might be looking for whoever. And if I introduce them to you, if I introduce them to the other guy, there's a good chance that that's who they're looking for, and they're going to finally get what they're looking for, and everybody wins. And then if he introduces me to his audience, that's the idea. There's that ever expanding pie.
Yeah.
So,
no, that is true. I mean, that's an outstanding network that you've built, and you figured it out. And there's nothing better than figuring something out. I got to tell you. I mean, that's when you figure something out and you say, "Wow, this is the end all be all." Mm-hmm. That's the best feeling in the world. So, yeah, kudos to you on that.
Well, thanks.
Sure.
And I'll just, the last point is that, or we can keep going. You tell me. You tell me when you had enough, and I'll just kind of put me on mute.
No, I love it. You know what I like, Dov, and you could continue, is your passion. And when I interview someone on this podcast, I like someone with passion, and you definitely have that. So I heard it the first time we spoke. So I said, I got to have that type of person on my podcast, because I know you can help who's ever listening to this. I have an audience of a lot of only business owners, quite frankly, and they could use something like what you have to offer. So that's why I wanted to have you on. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. What I came to notice is, I think I started saying this and we went off on some tangent. I started to realize a couple of years ago that it was those who have a specific tactic that it's easier to sell, right? So, but what did I knew my thing was building this network, but I would think, well, anybody can do this. Anybody can do what I've done. And after a while, it dawned on me that maybe anybody could, but I didn't know anybody who had. And, to the contrary, the stories that I'd heard is that most people who had joined a mastermind or a network, or whatever you want to call it, it petered out after a while. It got weaker, not stronger over time. And mine was getting stronger over time. Yeah. And then when we switched to paid, and we were still getting stronger, I realized, this probably could apply in a bunch of different ways. And I started, I was working with a client who's a consultant who, for him, his clients are $500 million plus businesses, manufacturing companies and he helps them with their new product development, because new product development often takes much longer than they want and costs much longer than they want. And, and he understands that talk about figuring something out. He understands that it's the way that the typical standard project management approaches are usually part of the cause, because you can throw more money at it, throw more people at it, and the problems don't get, you don't solve the problems that way. Right. And that's his thing. So for him, though, it's a long sales cycle. A new client is worth $200,000 up to low seven figures. Long sales cycle, complex sale, involves a number of different departments in a business. So I said, look, I think that you could create a network. And he started it, and he now has a couple of dozen senior executives at, $1 billion plus companies. And he's been using some messaging that I helped him create to reach out, and they're responding, because essentially he's looking to give them something. Everyone else reaching out to them is trying to get something from them, but he's inviting them to his network. So, and then I started the Under the Radar Leaders Network, which is for consultants who are who get most of their business through relationships and referrals and are looking to leverage it. Mm-hmm. And I've been helping other people do just that. So that's really what it is. And that's why I've kind of narrowed my focus, and we got profitablерelationships.com, which I was very pleased. It was, it wasn't quite available. I bought it secondhand, but the price wasn't astronomical. Like, it was reasonable. So actually, I have a friend who has dabbled in domain brokering, or, buying and selling over the years. And I said to him, look, I've got this domain and this is the price. Do you think I can get it lower? And he looked at it. He's like, yeah, you probably could, but honestly, I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't risk letting them know that someone actually wants it. Just buy it. And I said, okay, yeah, I bought it. So, because it just made sense. It felt like the right next step, and that's where we are. So now, I've recently started helping all the different skills and tools that I developed over the years.
Yeah.
The only difference now is that it's coming underneath this umbrella. So I've just narrowed my focus of the kind of people that I'm focusing on helping. And that is people who recognize that, hey, I'm not interested in becoming this, the Facebook ads ninja. I'm not interested in becoming a content marketing machine. I'm not interested in, all the different things that everybody says I should be doing. And I do recognize that if most of my business has come through quality relationships. I just need a way of leveraging it as opposed to perhaps scaling it. And it becomes a golden platform. When you have all the relationships like I have, like my clients have, it's just so much easier. You want to write a book and you want to get it to number one. It's just a lot easier to do when you have this golden platform. You have all those relationships. You want to start a podcast. You want to be on podcasts. It's just a lot easier to do it. So
you're right. I mean, that's wow. Yeah, that's that comes with years of wisdom. So that makes sense. And I'm glad you were able to do that. But I understand that you have a gift, if you will, for the guests. I'll put a link in the show notes here. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's just a short practical video training on it's at profitablelationships.com/local biz guy in your honor, right? For your podcast audience. And it's about how to build an alchemy network in a way that takes what you're already doing for free and turn it into a $50, $100, even $200,000 a year revenue stream. And essentially, if you are really good at what you do, if you have a service business of some kind, even if it's a product service combination, and you do feel most comfortable, like really with referrals, relationships, but you find that referrals are unpredictable and relationships take a lot of time, this is a way of leveraging what you've been doing, building leverage into it, and actually getting paid for things you're doing for free. And even doing it better. So sometimes you talk to a potential client, they say, hey, Frank, get back to us in 6 months. I really like what you're doing. It's a great idea. We're so bogged down on other priorities. I think we'll be much more ready in 6 months. And, I take the initiative. So after 5 months, I reach out to you and say, hey, Frank, remember you said to get back to you. How's it going? Almost ready? And you say, oh, Dov, I wish you got back to me last month because I started already with this other competitor of yours. Such a pity. I forgot all about you. That happens, right? That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And like what you could, I stick them all on your email list and send them emails, but that's a one-way communication. I recommend it. I think it's great, but it's one way. You don't know what's actually going on their end. You could send articles and books and things but you don't really know if they're interested, and all that often feels really forced. But what if instead you can bring them into your Alchemy Network and it's a modest, $500, $1,000, $2,000 a year membership. But now suddenly you have an excuse. Hey, Frank, let's get on a 15-minute call because I want to find out what you're up to. So that I can navigate or lead the network in a way that's most valuable. The conversation's going on in a way that's most valuable for you. Of course, you're going to say yes. It's not an effort to keep in touch until you're ready for a bigger project with me. See that? That's really what the idea here is. And now it's easier to stay in touch, and you can actually be getting paid for all those things that you're doing already for free, but in an awkward way. Yeah. So that's what the training's about.
That's pretty awesome. And I hope you guys take advantage of that. Check out the training that he's got there. Go to profitablelationships.com/local biz guy. And a link will be on the show notes. Before I bid farewell to this episode, are there any additional helpful tips that you want to share with these folks? Is there any zinger that you have not shared with us yet that you think will help them going forward as we move forward with 2020, which has been an odd year, as you know?
Well, the only thing that comes to mind right now is the lesson that I've learned many times and continue to learn, because and that is this: just take the next step. You do not have to know what the step after that's going to be. You can't possibly know, but take the next step. You never know where it's going to lead. We had a great conversation a week or so ago. We're talking now because I was on, I don't even remember what it was. There was some.
Yeah, you were on a 10-minute interview thing with a friend of mine, and that's how I saw you on LinkedIn.
That's right. Was it Nettie?
Nettie Owens.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. So then I did, we did that thing and you liked it. And I sent you a message saying thank you. And then we started talking, and I noticed, and anyone listening to this, I've come across a lot of people who do local marketing. And what I said to Frank was like, Frank, you actually seem like you know what you're doing. and I genuinely mean it. And after talking to you, I still I'm more convinced that it's true. And that just started a conversation, and that leads to this conversation. And I don't know what that will lead to, and for you or for me, but who knows?
No, so, definitely looking forward to working with you definitely in the future. But
likewise.
So I thank you, and we'll see where this relationship leads.
Absolutely. So just start. That's the answer. Just start and keep moving.
There you go. All right, folks. I am going to bid farewell to this episode. This has been Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. I'm Frank Deming, the local business guy, and you've just been blessed by Dov Gordon himself, the relationship king. Until next episode, take care and bye for now. Peace out, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. Don't forget, any links that were mentioned during the broadcast will be available to you in the show notes, so be sure to grab them while you have the chance. Incidentally, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss on the show, be sure to send an email to the email provided in the show notes, or click the Contact Us link and let us know what topic you would like us to help you with, and we'll be sure to add it to our schedule. If you would like for Frank and his team to look at your digital marketing presence and give you a free evaluation, simply click the Request a Free Consultation link in the show notes to get a hold of them. That being said, until our next episode, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.